السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Inshallah, with another golden piece of advice from the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the advice that I wanted to share with you today is from the companion Abdurrahman ibn Auf. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. The well-known Sahabi, one of the 10 who was promised paradise by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is related that he said, "Ibtulina bid-dharra'i fasabarna, wabtulina bis-sarra'i falam nasbir." Ibtulina bid-dharra'i fasabarna, wabtulina bis-sarra'i falam nasbir, which means that we were tested with adversity and we observed patience. But when we were tested with prosperity, we were not able to observe patience. Sabr in the Arabic language is something that is practiced at the time of difficulty and at the time of ease. How so? At the time of difficulty, patience is to not complain, not blame, not find fault with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's patience in the face of poverty, in the face of illness, in the face of adversity. But patience in the face of prosperity, in the face of ease, is to not allow the ease to cause us to indulge and become excessive and get away and start to think that this is all because of me. All of that is contrary to sabr at the time of ease. So being sabir at the time of ease, being patient at the time of ease, would require that at the time of ease I continue to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I do not get distracted and deluded and tempted by the ease and prosperity away from the path that leads to Allah's pleasure. So what Abdurrahman ibn Auf is saying, and by the way, we know that Abdurrahman ibn Auf was one of the richest companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him a barakah in his hands, such that wherever he puts his hands, profits. He was a businessman, he was a merchant, and he would very easily make a profit out of his business ventures. So he was very, very wealthy, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And so he is making this statement because he knows he has been there and done that, right? Because when he migrated from Mecca to Medina, he left all of his wealth. He became poor. But then after migrating to Medina, he became rich again. So he has been through both poverty as well as affluence. So he's saying here that when we were tested with difficulty, with poverty, with adversity, we were able to observe patience. But when we were tested with prosperity, we were not able to observe patience. Now, this shows us that both prosperity and adversity are tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of times when we think of tests from Allah, we think of difficulties, we think of hardships, we think of illness, we think of poverty. We don't think of affluence, success, victory as tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what Abdurrahman ibn Auf is trying to tell us is that both are ibtila. And he's not saying something new. The Quran tells us this. Actually, the ayah was recited last night when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. that we test you with both shar and khair. And both are a fitna for you. Shar, adversity, difficulty is a fitna, is a test, a trial for you. And affluence, ease, prosperity is also a trial for you to see how you're going to respond to both of these situations. And the more difficult test, believe it or not, is the test of prosperity, not adversity. That's exactly what Abdurrahman ibn Auf is saying. That when it came to the test of difficulties, we passed with flying colors because we have no choice but to be patient. But when it comes to the test of ease, affluence, success, that is the real test. That is the harder test. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us as an ummah that this is going to be the real test for us. So what did he say in the authentic hadith that's related by Bukhari and Muslim? He said, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا الْفَقْرَ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ وَلَكِنِّي أَخْشَى أَن تُبْسَطَ عَلَيْكُمُ الدُّنْيَا كَمَا بُسِطَتْ عَلَى مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ فَتَنَافَسُوهَا كَمَا تَنَافَسُوهَا وَتُهْلِكَكُمْ كَمَا أَهْلَكَتْهُمْ. He said that I swear by Allah, it is not poverty that I fear for you. I'm not worried about poverty for you. But what I'm worried about is that the world will be laid out in front of you like it was laid out on those who came before you. And you will compete for it just like they competed for it, and it will destroy you just like it destroyed them. So this is the real test. And that is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the majority of the people of Jannah are going to be masakeen. The majority of the people of Jannah are going to be the poor and the needy. Why? Because, again, because the test of poverty is easier to pass. But when it comes to the test of affluence and prosperity, that is the more challenging test. It is related about in the story of Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Ahmad went through a very difficult time in his life. He was imprisoned, he was persecuted, he was tortured because of things that we don't have time to talk about, because he stood up for the truth. He stood up for the truth, and he was persecuted by the Khalifa of his time. So he went through a very difficult phase in his life. He used to be whipped, he used to be tortured, and then eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him out of prison, and he was able to teach again and became very beloved to the people, and people started to come to his durus in large numbers. And so he became very, very famous, very, very popular. And so he went from a time of great difficulty to a time of great fame and great ease and success. So Imam Ahmad, when he was in prison, he never showed signs of concern, fear. But when he became popular, he became so concerned that he started praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take him to him, to give him death. He started praying for death to save himself from the fitna of fame, because he was so concerned that this would swerve him from the path. So this is a great reminder for us. We live a life of privilege, brothers and sisters. We live a life of affluence. We have what many, many people don't have. And that means that we need to show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what we have. Many of us, we don't show gratitude. We complain. We complain. Even though we have so much, we complain. And then we waste. We waste. That's not gratitude. That's ingratitude. We take it for granted. We don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't thank the means through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides us. We don't appreciate our bosses, our jobs. We're always looking at somebody else. Oh, they have a better job. They have a better boss. We're always complaining about our boss, our job, our position. That's all signs of ingratitude. And worst is when we don't share what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us with those that are less fortunate. That's also a sign of ingratitude. If we are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He has given us, then we pass this test with flying colors. And then we become better than those that show patience in the time of difficulty. Because then we are showing patience with prosperity, and that's the greater test. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the shakirin, to make us among the thankful ones, and not to make us among those who are ungrateful. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.